Hello everyone, and welcome back to our weekly roundup of the cryptocurrency market on behalf of Apex Signals. Back at home this week after broadcasting or publishing from holiday last week, so hopefully the light is a little bit better. I think it was a bit dark there in the room, but anyway, on to business. We can see the 7-day chart here for overall market capitalization. It's been a very calm week actually. Not a huge amount has been going on. There's been no big breaking stories, either hugely positive or hugely negative. Maybe the main event of the week has been EOS starting to get to grips with reality following their ICO, and we'll come over to that a little bit later. But we can see here that we've had a bit of a undulating but steady price pattern within the overall market. Last Sunday we were at 353 billion, heading into the end of the day European time on Friday we are at 342 billion overall market capitalization. We had a bit of a low of 330 billion on Tuesday, and that high on Thursday was back again towards 350 billion, and we've dropped slightly since then. And we switch now to the month chart. We can see clearly here that from around the 24th of May we have pretty steady pricing, fairly flat line with obviously it's moving up and down, but we haven't seen any particularly strong pattern upwards or downwards forming. We can see in the lead up to that we had a downward movement, and it's been a little while since we've had a couple of weeks of such calm, so it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. There is while there's not a huge amount of trading volume at the moment, there are some analysts who are talking about bullish sentiment starting to form in terms of the underlying trade volume. There's more buying and selling going on at the moment, so hopefully we can possibly push upwards in the near future. We've spoken a couple of times recently about the fact that for the past few months the market has been on a general downward trend. We've seen 3 to 4 weeks of upward movement followed by 3 to 4 weeks of downward movement over the past approximately 4 months, and there was a pattern of lower lows and lower highs over that period. Now the recent low towards the end of last month, or at the very end of last month, was higher than the previous low point after the last downward trend. So it'll be interesting to see if and when we start to take upwards movement again. Hopefully it will be upwards rather than downwards, and we can see a higher high. Okay, so in terms of general news, as I mentioned, there's not a huge amount going on this week. In the USA, the SEC came out and said that there's no way that they will change the definition of a security after calls from different participants in the cryptocurrency market to possibly redefine what's considered as a security. And the reason for that is that ICOs are being chased by the SEC on the basis that the tokens they market are defined as securities. So it would obviously be in the interest of ICOs for that definition to change slightly. Probably slightly optimistic at this stage to hope that the Securities and Exchange Commission would realign the definition to make life easier for ICOs, but yeah, they have said that that's not going to happen, which I don't think is a big surprise for anyone. Another interesting bit of news which could evolve as a story over the next couple of months is Fidelity Investments, which is think I might be wrong, but I think it is the biggest asset manager, retail asset manager in the United States. It's a fund supermarket platform within traditional investment industry. It's also present in parts of Europe and in the UK, and they've been advertising for developers for to work on a cryptocurrency exchange. So that would be an interesting development if they are indeed exploring potentially creating their own cryptocurrency exchange. Okay, let's move on to Bitcoin. Yep, so here we have Bitcoin. It's followed a relatively similar pattern to the wider market. We had a high on Tuesday, and that was around 7,300. Then we had a dip on Tuesday down to, sorry, the high on Sunday was 7,700. Dip on Tuesday was down to 7,300, and we're approaching $7,600 for Bitcoin today. Now, there was an interesting article that I read earlier as well around Bitcoin, and there's a price comparison site called Finder, and they have a couple of times this year polled different experts within the cryptocurrency market and analysts, and asked for their price targets for Bitcoin. Now, at the beginning of the year, they'd the consensus figure was around $33,000 for Bitcoin. They did another consensus poll last week, and while it was significantly lower, it was down to just over 14,000. I think 14,400 was the figure. That would still leave plenty of room for growth, around twice the prices that we're seeing at the moment before the end of the year. If that's met, obviously, there's no guarantee, and the fact that they recently, within a few months, changed from 33,000 to 14,000. And something I think highlights in itself the lack of reliability that these kind of forecasts tend to have, or predictions, but it's still always interesting to see what analysts and experts in the area are saying and listen to the reasons behind it. Again, they're talking about a price boost coming from institutional investors moving into the space, which is the great white hope of the market at the moment. And if we move on to EOS here, sorry, it's the last one over here. Of course, last week on June the 1st, the EOS ICO came to an end. It raised I think it was $13 billion altogether. That makes it the biggest capital raise of the year, bar only 2 IPOs. So IPO is an initial public offering. That's when a company goes on to a stock exchange. So only 2 companies in the world raised more capital by going through the IPO process to list on the stock exchange than EOS or Block One, the company behind EOS, managed to raise to their ICO. So that is pretty impressive in itself. Now, the overall market cap of EOS on Tuesday, on June the 2nd, the day after the ICO, which was supposed to be the day when the mainframe of the EOS platform was launched, was $12.3 billion. There was a slide since then. We can see following the, sorry, look over to the right, there was a spike on the 3rd immediately after that, and there's been a gradual easing of EOS price since then. I think at the moment we're at around $13.80, and there's a little bit of upward movement towards the $14 mark recently. Now, the interesting thing about EOS is that we're all throughout the ICO expecting June the 2nd to be the launch of the main blockchain platform, which is of course smart contracts in that platform. In the end, what was released was open source software, and an invitation for the development community to build blockchains on the EOS open source software. And the idea is that one of the blockchains which is put forward by the developer community will become the dominant EOS blockchain. There's apparently two main groups competing at the moment for that honor, and we will see over the next few weeks where we get with an actual working blockchain that smart contracts and apps can be built on. Holders of the EOS ICO tokens have been already given the opportunity to switch, to convert them to a relative number of tokens on the native tokens for the EOS blockchain. And Finder, also the same comparison website that was looking at Bitcoin price, they put EOS as a cryptocurrency that the experts believe have the most potential over the remainder of this year, and the prediction was for 200% price increase on where we are today. Obviously there's a lot of unknown factors still in terms of how EOS will gain market traction after the blockchain is finally released, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. Okay, so that's all for this week. As we mentioned at the beginning, not hugely eventful. Let's hope that we start to see some upward movement into the weekend and over the beginning of next week, and it would be nice to be at a significantly higher market value and a nice upward movement when we speak this time next week. Enjoy your trading over the weekend. I wish you every success, and yes, speak again soon. Bye for now.